Hello and welcome to PMI's Uncommon Sense podcast, tools to improve your work forever. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner with PMI, the performance improvement consulting and training firm. Our Uncommon Sense podcast is a 15-minute conversation with our expert consultants. They talk a lot of common sense, although much of it is not common practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to be inspired to improve your business through learning more about the tools which can help you succeed and grow. So today I'm with Mark Allison. Thank you very much for joining me again today, Mark. Today's episode is getting the best out of the team. So I'm interested in perhaps where you think people aren't getting the best out of the team. If you could also talk a little bit about that today too.
Yeah, no, again, and thanks for having me again, Suze. It's lovely to see you again. And yeah, always happy to share my thoughts about teamwork and getting the best out of a team. So I'm really excited to be here, first and foremost. So again, well, I love my quotes. So just before I kind of get to that answer, one of the real passions of mine in terms of getting the best out of a team is the quote of don't do change to people, do change with people, which I think is really powerful to even the point that you said about people who maybe aren't getting the best out of their team just now versus people that maybe are, or they're stuck in the middle of, well, how do I move from one to the other? And I think that's a really important thing for everyone to think about, is to involve people as soon as possible. So that's my first thing. And the second thing, if you think about process improvement in the eyes of the customer, then any activity that we do in processes is supposed to deliver value for the customer. In my eyes, 100% true, but I think we miss the point in terms of, well, how do we ensure people add value to process improvement? And I think if we can put both them together, then that's how we'll get the best out of the team as well as the best out of the improvement at the end of it. In terms of how do I think people can get away from not getting the best out of the teams, as I think we underutilise people, if that makes sense. If we think about waste and processes, and the 8 wastes in particular, we've got the non-utilised talent waste, and we talk about that quite a lot on our training courses. We definitely do, and in terms of, even if you were to Google it, you'd probably see it. And I don't think, again, people really use that lens as much in terms of actually, do you know if you're getting the best out of your team? Are people underutilised? Not just from, could they be doing something more effective or that's got bigger impact in the process? Are they being utilised in the right way in terms of improvement, in terms of their theories they may have about something, the ideas they've got about how to make things better, how to support the improvement project? So yeah, I definitely would be really good to talk about and give some hints and tips on utilising people correctly during the process improvement.
So, how would you go about ensuring you get the best out of your team?
For me, relationship building is super important. Whether that be, again, when you're on board in the team, when you're contracting with the team, which I've mentioned previously. I think if you can put your arms around people in the right way, and I know it's not everybody's not the same in terms of how they interact with people, and it might be a bit more challenging depending on what type of person you are and the personality you've got, but there's nothing to lose, I think, in this. And if you, again, as I said, put the arms around somebody, you look after them, and you're clear in terms of why they're there, and again, what is in it for them, which I love. I feel, and I've experienced and I've observed when people try this, that they're more likely to look after you in terms of that and make your life easier as a process improvement practitioner or project lead. They're more likely to then look after the process because they're the ones that from an operator perspective, specifically are the ones that operate it, but even from a management level, they're the ones that should be managing the process and maintaining them as assets pretty much, which and then in turn will help to look after the customer at the end of the day. So yeah, I think building that relationship from the start, being open, being honest, being clear, is super important.
Because sometimes when you are in that position of being a project leader, you're not necessarily from the area in which the problem is manifesting itself. So you're absolutely right that using that local team or some of that local team for their input and then setting them up to be able to then look after the processes when the project is over is a really important step, isn't it? Then that's not just for the lifetime of the project, it's beyond the project, isn't it?
Yes, super important that you may only be delivering an improvement if we're talking, I don't know, green belt level just now. It might only take between 3 to 6 months. So you're only working with these specific people on your team for a small amount of time, to be honest. And when you're finished that project and you're about to hand it over, like you said, Suze, you might maybe stepping away and going and working in a totally different area of the business. So being able to, I'd say, probably have trust in the team that you've worked with, ensure that they're ready, they're confident to go back into the world of their organisation, but they're also confident to continue supporting others that haven't been on the same journey as them in terms of not only managing, maintaining the current new way of working, but making sure it's standardised, it's sustained, obviously for the foreseeable, and take others on that journey. And if it's not, then there should be the ones that stand up and be accounted for and say, well, look, we need to do something about it. And they take that legacy on from what they learned working with the project lead, for example, and try and do justice themselves moving forward.
Done well in a team, the potential is that, as we say, not only do they have the responsibilities you just described and the behaviours, but actually they can be seen as champions in an organisation. So part of creating that wider engagement in a business of how do we sustain this continuous improvement?
Yeah,
that's what the potential of your team is, isn't it?
100%. And it starts out, as you said, the keyword potential. You start out with potential, and if you go on that journey in the right way with that team, then it can massively help shift the culture. I think the word culture is what I was wanting to use here. And they should be able to become champions. And what do we mean by champions? Well, we should be able to go and share knowledge, share the successes that they've had in the process, upskill each other, to be fair, in terms of any future team meetings, any daily huddles that you may have in your organisation. It's an opportunity for them to be that person where they just do it naturally now. They don't need to be asked to do it. But also, I think it can help them to develop a passion for future career prospects, to be honest, in terms of if they wanted to get involved in a continuous improvement role in the future, not just maybe do it within their day job, which is super important. But I know a few people that I've worked with in the past that were involved in a team as part of a project that loved it that much. They championed it that much that they went on to go and actually be in an improvement role as well. So it gives you so many different options in the future.
What would your advice be if you've got somebody on the team who isn't really yet a believer? In their mind, to them, improvement and process management, they don't see the need for it. Perhaps they're very happy with how things are now. They don't want change and so on. Now, sometimes we can't avoid having somebody like that on a team. They become on a team because they are an expert. They are a process operator. So how do you get the best out of those people, would you say, Mark?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, I'm not just coming on this podcast to talk about everything that's going to be easy and it's all happy and there's no challenges ever. Because again, when you're not working on your own, and you are starting to develop a team around you, that there will be challenges. And first and foremost, it's about being able to recognise that, I think, as a skill to have. And if you recognise it early enough, I believe, and you have the right conversation in terms of, again, what we're trying to accomplish, why we've got you involved, how you're going to add value, not just for now, but how is this going to really impact you in your role moving forward in terms of making things better in terms of the job that they do, as I'd say the first part of that conversation. Depending on how that goes, it may then be that you need to rethink kind of the role and maybe responsibility of that person, whereas you wanted them to be a bit more involved, whereas now you've identified that might not be the case, but how can they play a different role in terms of they have got a lot of knowledge, but do they just need to maybe feed the team with information and they don't get involved as much, but they still get to play a part in terms of giving you what they know so you can learn from them. And then, to be honest, if that isn't enough, then it may well be that you have that nice conversation to say, well, look, maybe at this point in time, it's not the right time for you to be part of the team. But we may come back to you in the future if you change based on what you've observed or what you see in terms of improvement, and you go and identify somebody else. So yeah, it's not always perfect, but it's about having those open and honest conversations, listening. I think it's so easy to shut people down when they're trying to tell you things that maybe go against what you're trying to do. But yeah, be active in terms of your listening. Appreciate that they've got an opinion as well as you. Hopefully you can iron it out, as I said, and we can move forward together and get them to experience something that changes their mind. Mm. But if not, then maybe that's just the way it is and we move on.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mark. Great talking to you today. I really appreciate all your insights. Really good.
No,
thank you.
Lovely speaking to you, Suze. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more episodes of our Uncommon Sense Tools to Improve Your Work Forever in our Knowledge Hub on our website, or, of course, your favourite podcast platform. And do subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find links to more content on this topic, which includes webinar recordings, toolbox guides, blogs, and infographics, and our training page. You can always drop us a line on team@pmi.co.uk and arrange a time to have a call to talk about how these tools can help you in your organisation. We'd really love to hear from you.